pitching to as well. I mean, you can pitch Lisa in a different way than you can pitch NECN because I need pictures, you know. So don't work too hard to pitch us on something that's really just not a very visual story, because there's just not as much we can do with it. Or think about what the visuals would be. Kind of recognize that at the end of the day, if I'm going to forward this to a reporter who might want to follow up on it, they're going to do a story, but they got to have something they can take a camera to and make interesting. So be sensitive to that. And the other thing that I'd recommend, and sometimes it's hard to do because you've got other pressures to get the news out to wherever on any given day, but recognize when we were in the middle of the whole water main break in Boston. There's 2 million people without water. It wasn't a great time. And the pitches don't stop. But you've got to recognize that if you're pitching TV people, we've got a fairly limited staff, and generally in a story like that, we're throwing everybody at it. So if you're pitching at that point, you're pitching to an audience that's not listening. So it's almost worth it to say, if there's major stories breaking, if the Celtics have won the World Championship and there was a parade, that's not the day to send out your PR.
Suggest ask yourself whether what you're doing is pitching a story or asking for advertising. If you're looking to promote your company, and you are in either way, I'm much more likely to pay attention if there's a story behind it, if it's hooked to a trend, to a news item, to a larger, not necessarily piece of information, but a larger story. So show me how you can be a part of the other stuff that's going on. If it's a corporate event, I'm probably going to tell you should probably post something on the calendar section, because there's no point in me telling my readers, go have dinner here, go attend this event, unless I can tell them why they should also. And my job is I'm trying to help my readers. I'm not really trying to help your company. So you need to present your information to me in this is how you can help your readers. This is how you can build your brand. This is how you can help your company, not do me a favor, I need to promote my event.
Yes, and company anniversaries aren't news.
Well, here's what I've learned about how to get on TV. Okay, so this is both national and local. So every single morning, what happens is about 5 o'clock, maybe 4 o'clock in the morning, all the producers who are in their early 20s show up at the news station. So we're talking CNBC, we're talking the Today Show, we're talking Good Morning America, we're talking The View, everywhere around the country at any single news program on cable or on national television. They're showing up around then, and they're starting to comb everything. AOL, Yahoo, The Drudge Report, what else do we look at? We look at Liberté, we look at The Guardian, we look at Time, we look at The Week, we look at everything, and we see what stories are trending. And then we go through the list and we pick which stories we're going to do. And that's why when you flip through channels, why is it that Morning Joe is talking about the same damn thing that they're talking about CNN, is written as on AOL, which is the same thing they're making jokes about on David Letterman? It's because we've come to this point in society where there's such an aggregation of stories, and people clicking on the same things over and over and over again drives them to the top of the list. So we're all talking about the same damn thing. So if what you were to do every single morning is to go and look at all the stories that are trending, the most emailed stories from the New York Times, the most emailed stories from Time Magazine or The Week or Guardian, and you were to look at that list and say, okay, somewhere in Boston there is a young producer freaking out because they have a 4-minute segment to fill this morning and they need an expert. And the expert from California that was supposed to be on the teleprompter, it's like something's not working because of this, that, the other thing. So what you should be doing, if you really want to get on TV, is you should be looking at what's trending in the news, and after you've done everything that these guys have said, which is to develop the relationships, friend people on LinkedIn, blah, 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 you then send them a 4-sentence email that says, hey, the partner in my advertising agency would be happy to come on this morning to talk about the impact of LeBron James's negative publicity on his advertising revenue next year. Boom. You just created relevancy, you're now relevant to the topic of the day, and you actually have a shot of getting your boss on television. Hello, promotion.
That sounds great.
Right, isn't that how it happens at NESA?
Right,
isn't that what Jim Browdy's doing?
And that applies to print also. That's a much more eloquently put way, what I meant about tying your pitch to the larger picture.
And actually, I mean, one thing I'd add to that is that when you know the people that you're pitching to, you can actually make that call the night before or the day before, and nothing makes a producer happier. I won't go quite to the same level that Mel did, but I mean, it's kind of the same. She's got it pretty well right that producers are always looking for stuff, and if they can go home the night before, the night before LeBron James speaks, and they're leaving in the afternoon because they've got the morning show the next morning, they've got somebody. You call them, they know you, they trust you, you've built a relationship, and they can book whoever you want booked for the next morning, then that makes their 4 a.m. a lot easier too.
Yeah, that's very good. So, do you have cards that you want to? All right. So this comes from the audience now. All right. Who do you consider good models of strong, lasting personal brands? That's a general question to the panel. Who do you consider a good model of strong, lasting personal brand? Anyone?
Oprah Winfrey, Nike, Coca-Cola, McDonald's. I mean, they're kind of Tiger. Oh, well, no, not Tiger Woods. That's an example of how to destroy your brand.
I think that who came forth with this question? Are you looking for a person? When you say personal brand, you don't
Trump?
corporate?
Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga.
Good.
Yeah. What happened to Madonna?
She's
Isn't she still good?
Well, for a certain segment, she's.
Yeah.
And do you know do you guys know that Michael Jackson has made $750 million since he died? There's a good brand.
All right, this is for Mel. Recommendations in breaking through, in building your brand, rejection. I can't even read this.
Who wrote this?
Your brand, rejection may come often, thoughts, words of wisdom.
Who wrote this? Honest to God, you have a question about rejection and you won't raise your hand? I'm not going to embarrass you. I want to know more about what you're doing, so I can ask you.
I don't mean to embarrass it.
I don't care. I want you to get what you want. So if you will raise your hand, I will ask you more about your business or your objectives, and I will give you advice that will actually work. If you're that scared, you're not going to get what you want. That's the advice. So I'd raise your hand now.
All right.
Honestly. I'm serious, because what it means to get what you want is to put yourself out there and to push through your fear. And look, Dan's even uncomfortable. He's starting to walk through it. It was you?
I heard you have a book coming out at some point.
I do. It was you. Are you saving somebody in the audience, or did you really write this?
No, I just made it up.
Oh, for crying
Okay,
out loud.
thoughts on using social media as a launch pad for developing a manuscript?
Well, I just wrote my first book, and
What's the working title? Do we have one?
Not really. It's called. There's one called Stuck Nation. There's another one called Stop Saying You're Fine. I'm not sure yet. The thing about writing this book is it was definitely the hardest thing I've ever done. And I did exactly what I did in college, which is after I sold the proposal, I procrastinated for about 8 months. And then the book was due within a month, and so I had a month to write 70,000 words, and so I started chain smoking and drinking again and staying up all night. It's not a really good way to write a self-help book, I found. But what I started doing is I started tweeting about the process and also asking for advice just from Twitter as to how to get through writer's block and also for the type of stories that I was looking for.